The debt deal is actually layered. There are things that happen immediately and other things that will roll out over time. And then finally, a bit of kind of meta legislation that attempts to control the process by which future deficit reduction will happen. So think of it as having three main components. The first, the big kahuna, the thing everyone's been fighting about, the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling gets raised enough to allow Treasury to continue meeting its obligations until after the 2012 election. In exchange for this munificence from the GOP, Congress then imposes spending caps on discretionary spending. That's the part of the budget that doesn't include Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. You know, stuff like national parks, scientific research, education, highways, stuff like that. These spending caps start in the fall, and they start relatively small and then get bigger. They are predicted to reduce spending by about $900 billion over the next decade. Finally, Congress creates a bipartisan joint committee. This is the Super Congress or Super Committee you've been hearing about that will get together in November with the task of coming up with another $1.5 trillion in cuts. This is where both tax increases and Social Security and Medicare cuts could come back into the deal, because that super committee, which will have an expedited process to vote on its recommendations, can more or less come up with whatever it wants. But you're thinking, what if there's no agreement from the super committee? Well, that's not a surprising thought given what we've just been through. And there's good reason to think they won't come to an agreement. So what happens then? Well, if that's the case, then another round of automatic cuts goes into effect. This is the trigger everyone's been talking about, in the amount of $1.2 trillion, which will hit everything from the Pentagon to payments to Medicare providers. The thinking on the trigger here is that the second round of automatic cuts will be so palatable across the board, hitting Democratic and Republican constituencies, that Congress will be motivated to pass whatever the super committee comes up with. But be careful what you wish for, because anyone who thinks a body composed equally of Democrats and Republicans will produce anything other than a conservative agenda has not been paying attention. And if you were